Be still and know that I am God. And that first part of the psalm, I don't know if you heard it over all the din, but it's all about, if you like, all hell breaking loose, about awful stuff happening. And it says, the person who writes the song, the psalmist, is in fear. And I was trying to think about one of the most scary moments in my life when I've been most afraid. How many of you have been on a plane before? Brilliant, quite a lot of you. Well, there's this thing that sometimes you get on a plane when you fly called turbulence. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but it's kind of, I don't know the science, but it's a change in how the atmosphere and the air is made up, and you're going along really nice and smooth, and then suddenly you hit this patch of air, and the pressure changes, and the plane wobbles a little bit, and occasionally it drops, and you can feel a little bit nervous. Now, I'd experienced this before. I was flying between, I think it was Netherlands and Heathrow, coming into land, and we hit a bit of turbulence. It's been a lovely journey so far. I was flying along nice and calm. It was only an hour trip, so I was quite chilled, reading my book. I'd left the complimentary breakfast because I don't know what it was, but going along quite nicely. And then just hit a little bit of turbulence. I thought, that's okay, this is all right, we've got this. Been through this before. And then we continued, and it started like the plane felt like it dropped a little bit. And at this point, I was starting to think, yeah, this is getting interesting. And we carried on, and then the light came on that says, please put your seatbelts on. So I thought, okay, it's fine. Been through this before. Not an issue. And then it really started going for it. And at this point, I must admit, my heart rate was increasing slightly. Behind me, as it happened, I only found this out as the turbulence got worse, there was a whole church who'd been on holiday together. And when they started praying out loud, Jesus, I thought, oh gosh, this isn't good. And we kept going, and it kept getting more and more. And by this point, I must admit, I was getting a little bit scared. Now, at the point where the air hostesses sit on a passenger's lap and strap themselves into the seatbelt, that's the point I began thinking, this perhaps isn't normal. And the whole thing's going, and this church behind me, they're praying even louder, and people are starting to panic. And I thought, my goodness, this is not how I imagined it ending. But I was genuinely really scared. And in that moment, I was still, and I prayed, God, I hope we get out of this okay. But then what happened is, over the tannoy, the pilot's voice came over the speakers. And he said, please remain calm. We're experiencing a bit of turbulence. And I thought, a bit of turbulence? But he was very calm, and he said, we're sort of 20 minutes off Heathrow. Please remain calm. Everything's fine. We're going to come in and land, and you'll be able to go on your way. And you know, the pilot spoke with such calmness and with such authority that actually it didn't make me feel 100% confident, but it actually made me feel a lot better. I was stressed. I was genuinely scared. But because the pilot was calm and in control, it gave me faith that everything would be safe. And I'm sure if I could have gone into the cockpit and seen his face as he said what he said, then I'd have been even more at ease and much less fearful even. And our psalm, that was just to check you're listening. Well done, you passed. Our psalm for today is a psalm that invites us, a song that invites us not to see life from our point of view. Because when we see life from our point of view, it can look quite scary sometimes. It can be like those bottles that are shaking. But this psalm invites us to see life through God's point of view. If you like to go into the cockpit and hear what the pilot's saying and see how the pilot is reacting, it invites us to see life and this world through God's eyes. And as we look around the world, it is easy to be fearful. And as we look at our own lives, we're all going through stuff one way or another where it's easy to be fearful. But this song in the psalm imagines it feeling like we're in the middle of a massive storm. That's what he's singing. That's what he's talking about. It may feel, he says, like the waves are crashing into the sea, that the mountains are falling down, like everything is up in the air and a massive storm is coming. It may feel like that. But then he goes on to say what God wants to say. And Vicky's just going to come and show us a couple of things on that.
if I turn that on. So if you've got your bottle with you and your world, just grab it because that would help for this bit. There's sometimes some things that are going on in our world which make us feel a bit fearful. I know for me, I was listening this week to a podcast on the use of plastic, and it absolutely made me panic to the point of having to turn it off because I just thought, actually, I'm really fearful about what our world holds. I wonder if there's any other situations in our world which sometimes make any of us fearful. Has anyone got anything that immediately springs to mind that they're happy to just shout out? Joel? The war in Ukraine. Sometimes at school, I know they watch Newsround or the news pops on our radio in the morning, and sometimes the news about that can make us be a bit fearful, and we've had chats over breakfast and stuff about how that makes us feel, both for the people out there in the Ukraine and in Russia and the soldiers and the civilians, but also for us in our country and what impact that's going to have on us. Any other situations in the world that make us feel fearful? I know there's loads and loads I've heard on the news this week about, Becca. The cost of living, it's so true, and it can make us panic. We can panic for ourselves, we can panic for other people. And if you just hold or stick, if it's still sticky, that world to the back of the bottle, and then give it a good shake. What is happening to the glitter? What's happening to the glitter there? Swirling, swirling. Sometimes the situations in the world feel chaotic and out of control, just like that glitter which is going round and round. But what is happening to the world that's stuck on the back? What is that world doing? It's staying still. Thank you. Well done, Ruth. We sang that song about God being the rock, and it says, you hold the world in your hands. And God is holding, no matter what's going on in the world with the environment, with the cost of living, with the war in Ukraine, God has got the world in his hands. Now, we need to act and we need to do something about it, but God is in control, and that gives us confidence and helps us to know that we can be still and know that he is God. Just pick up your little person again. We'll stick that on the back. I don't know if there are situations sometimes in your own life that make you feel out of control and worried. Yesterday or the day before, I was having a conversation with someone about when things change, I get really worried. When things in my life change, when the kids start a new school or when someone in my family starts a new job, just the fact that our patterns as a family will change, it makes me really nervous. It can make me feel anxious, and I get hot and bothered, and I don't sleep very well. I don't know if anyone else has got situations in their life that make them feel a little bit like that. Maybe it's like a butterfly in your tummy, or maybe it's like you just can't quite sleep at night, or you just feel a bit grumpy with people and you're a bit out of sorts. And no matter, again, give it a big shake, no matter what is going on in our own lives, when it feels swirly and when it feels out of control, we can be secure that God has got us in his hands. That little person is steady and is staying still. And that's what it's like to be in God, to know his plans for us and know that he has got us in his hands.
Brilliant. Thank you, Vicky. But being still and knowing that God is there doesn't just mean being quiet. It doesn't just mean being quiet, although that is really good to do, because sometimes we can't hear God because we're so busy and we're so noisy. But the Hebrew word, the original word in the text for be still, actually means let yourself become weak, cause yourself to let go. Let yourself become weak, cause yourself to let go. And another near disaster that we avoided on our holiday once was we went over to Gibraltar Point, which is on the coastland, just near kind of Skegness, Cleethorpes, that kind of area. And there's big mud flats there. And we went for a little walk, and we thought we'd take a bit of a shortcut to get to this cafe around the headland. So rather than just following the beach round, which would have gone on forever and it's quite boring, we thought we'd just take a little cut across the mud flats. How dangerous could that be? Well, it turned out that Vicky went first, because she's great like that. And what happened is it was like quicksand. We got to a bit that was like quicksand. Vicky went in with one welly, and started sinking. So she quickly moved to pull it out, and she lost her welly. The other foot went in, and she just gently, very gently, just started just going down a little bit. And we were like, goodness, how? Wow, she's going to be here forever. Now, apparently, looking at Wikipedia, we did do a quick Google, clearly, when we were out in the flatlands. How do you get out of quicksand? What they say is do not move around, because if you move around and you thrash around, you try and get out, and actually you're just going to sink a little bit lower and lower because you're displacing all the stuff, and it kind of goes into this weird kind of half liquid, half solid, and just sort of, you just go down a little bit. So it says do not struggle, but be still, and very gently, just wiggle your feet like that. They call me Bear Grylls. Just wiggle your feet like that. And what that does, it creates a pocket of air, of a vacuum under your feet, and very slowly you begin to come to the top of the surface. So if you thrash around trying to get out of quicksand, you will sink. If you're still, just gently wait. Hopefully as well someone will come across and rescue you and drag you out as well. But these are 3 rules if you ever find yourself in quicksand near Gibraltar Point. Stop, don't panic, call for help. Stop, don't panic, call for help. And you know, when the world is in a storm, when we're experiencing like that glitter in our own lives, when we're feeling afraid or anxious, sometimes we want to struggle and we want to do things our way and we just want to get out of it. And before we even think about asking God or listening to God, we're so busy trying to sort it out ourselves. But actually, in those moments, we need to be still and know that He is God. Stop, don't panic, and call for help. And we struggle with this a little bit. We struggle, I think, with the idea that there can be strength in weakness. We'd rather be strong and figure it out ourselves and do things our way. And we do that when we're in trouble, but sometimes I think we also do that when things are good as well. When life is good, sometimes, you know, we're not still listening to God. We still think we know how to do things our way. We think our way is best. And ultimately, that's why you get things like Putin going to war. Ultimately, that's why we've got the environmental crisis, because we do things our way, not God's way. That's why there's a widening gap between those who are rich and those who are poor. That's why we sometimes take advantage of people. That's sometimes where we're unkind to people. That's sometimes why we don't forgive people, because we're still doing things our way and not God's way. And so this psalm as well isn't just saying, be still and know that I'm God when stuff's going mental in your own lives and in the world. But it's saying, if you think that your way is better than God's way, stop, be still, and know that He is God and His way is best. And that's ultimately what we see when Jesus dies on the cross. Jesus could fight. Jesus could do things His way, but He doesn't. He says, not my will, but yours. He says, into your hands I give myself. Jesus on the cross is still, because He knows God. He lets go and He lets God. And because of that, where there is fear, God brings hope. Where there's hate, God brings love. Where there's sin, God brings forgiveness. And where there's death, God brings life. So this morning, as God is speaking to you, to me, where is God calling you to stop, be still, and know that He is God? Where is He saying, stop, don't panic, call for help? Amen.